All right, guys, first off, thanks for just coming, hanging out, talking with us. And I'm excited just to talk with you guys about just fatherhood, just being a dad, what's that look like? You guys all have, grown kids, across the gamut, kids. You're here with two of your grown kids,
Yeah.
Kyle, someday you'll get there.
Yeah, right.
But so from my perspective, I've got two young kids, so I'm a relatively new dad. And, so for me, it's just like, man, get together with some guys who are ahead of me, who've been doing this longer than me, and just being able to ask, like, man, what were some things that you felt like you did right? What were some things you felt like you did wrong? What were some of the thought processes going on just along the road? Some of that stuff just to, learn myself and encourage our church. Like, how can we be good dads?
One of the things I learned as a parent was, my kids are going to do more what I do than what I say.
Yeah,
Amen.
That's really good.
And so I knew that, I'd catch myself even if I wanted to, let a choice word fly. And I'm saved and everything, but how it is. There are times that will come up, not yet for you, but there will be times where you want to just say, what's going on?
Yeah.
And with them or some of their friends. And you'll get that.
We were perfect, of course, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. Before Dad's already moving over. I know.
Hey, you were saying about the choice words and whatnot. I remember with our kids being in school and elementary and all the different things they were hearing there. They were like, what? Can I say a cuss word if I'm really upset? Is what I remember my oldest asking me that, and I said, you can say anything you want as long as you've heard me say it. And she was like, all right, bet. And I said, okay. And coming all the way up through high school, she's like, Daddy, you don't ever say nothing like that. you don't say that. I said, yeah, because I try to control my words.
The way things are, like in our society, like our culture right now, like with my kids. I mean, my kids are approaching, their teenage years. Like my son Tyson will be 13 here in just a couple of weeks, and our daughter Kimura will, she just turned 11. So, love them dearly. But I mean, it's kind of nice growing up when, basically like when I was younger, just kind of what I experienced, as their, at their age level as compared to what they're dealing with now. I mean, we didn't have all of the social media, all of the Facebook, all of the Instagram, all the Snapchat, all that stuff. We didn't have anything like that really could, help even influence, kids my age at that time, and maybe their thought process. And that is really just the most unique part of the way things are right now. And really, as far as just being a dad, is just being involved and knowing what your kids are doing and what they're watching.
How do you deal with it when maybe your kids are asking questions or coming to you with something that they heard somewhere that you're like, that's not right, and this is how we're going to correct this? How do you handle something like that?
Well, I mean, we've definitely hit it a little bit what we're just talking about. I mean, the internet is definitely controlling a lot of what's going on with our kids. They're seeing a lot of bad things on the internet. They're seeing a lot of stuff with shootings, the school stuff. My wife and I, we spend a lot of time getting the kids to sit down, and we have family dinners.
Yeah.
We have times on Sunday where we all get together and we talk about, my wife, how's your heart? How's your heart? And then we find out what's going on. And then when the kids, once they know that it's a safe place to talk to their parents, they open up and they give us a lot of information, and then that's when we can counteract what they're hearing, either by the word or, hey, I appreciate you guys talking with us, but this is how it really is.
Yeah.
The kids see their mother and I, we read the word together every morning. We get up early, have our coffee. We pray for each one of them. They know we're praying for them. So if we start their day off on a positive, it makes a huge difference on what goes on, what they see during the day.
Yeah. So Kyle, you don't have kids yet.
Not yet.
But you do have a dad.
I do. A good one. When he said something about how his father lived it, and it's just like, I mean, that's it, and I'm so thankful that I have being a teacher and just talking about being in a public school system, what it can be like at times. It's just, there's some craziness. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Just different directions, so many different variables working around our students these days, getting pulled in all these different directions, getting classified, being identified as certain things, and being told they're this, or, having to overcome a lot of that. I know the biggest gift I was ever granted, from my father is that I don't have to wonder. I don't have to wonder what it's like. I don't have to wonder what it looks like to treat your wife the right way in a godly manner. I don't have to wonder, what it's like, what it looks like to love your kids. But so many times you see different examples where fathers are, like I said, in a school, so I have kids come in and they're just broken. They're beat down. It's the opposite of what Drew was saying. Their mornings are chaotic and argumentative, abrasive, and it's just, I'm so blessed that, all I know is what this, what my pops lived. He did it right. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, no,
I'll tell some stories when he had to check me too here soon.
Yeah.
I worked for the Salvation Army in the summer with kids who, I lived back east and were kids who were from inner city New York. So that's where we're from, is northern New Jersey. My wife was actually, their mother was actually born in Manhattan.
Okay.
And that's what I had. I had kids from the inner city Harlem. So these kids were it was hardcore back then in the 60s, and a lot of drugs and all that going on, and so that's when I was really exposed to, realizing how good I had it.
Absolutely.
Good.
Amen.
Yeah.
So it gave me a heart for
Absolutely.
to see kids struggle because they didn't get that is
Yeah.
is hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's not complicated. It's not rocket science. Just love, like the Lord says, love.
Unconditionally.
Unconditional.
Unconditional love.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's like one of the things that I picked up, just from having him as a father when we were little, was just, just the way that he loved on us, and the way that he would think things through. And because I am the way that I am today because of him. And a lot of it had to do with just the way that he handled himself, the way when he would approach, something as far as anything that he had to think about, like a decision. That's what I really get from my dad too, is that I always think things through before making anything as far as rash decisions, whether it would be for my family or for myself or for, or whoever. Dad always had this calm about him and this confidence that, you to never be influenced by anybody else. You just, pray about it and just follow your heart. You know what I mean? And I really think I've developed my life and my path, based on a lot of those principles that my dad had given me. I always made sure that I thought through. I was never influenced by others if it was something that, could have been derailing me from something else, towards the ultimate goal, maybe what God wanted, not just the fun. I always tried to have a good head on my shoulders for the most part. I'm not perfect by any means, but I had a perfect role model, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's the baptism of the Holy Spirit in Jesus.
Yeah.
It ain't me.
Yeah.
Because I raised my share of it but I was blessed to not, like it, because I knew it was wrong, and to rededicate my life to the Lord as a young man,
Right.
and then start walking it. They didn't get 20 years of it, He wasn't even born when I rededicated my life to the Lord, and stuff like that, and changed some real major things in my life,
Yeah.
and took responsibility for it in my family,
Yes.
Yeah.
like my dad did. My job to get him to church.
Yeah.
Everything these guys are talking about, and we've all talked about, is modeling.
Yeah.
Kids, whether they're your own kids or kids at school, they're gonna watch what you do, and they're gonna model after what you do.
Yeah.
I'll get Pops real quick. I told Don this story. So I gotta give, this is an example, I even tell my students sometimes, I like a lot of teenage boys.
He'll call me. in his class. And hold his cell phone up.
That's nice.
What do you say about that?
Give me some wisdom. But our mom is pretty special too. She's amazing. And I remember I came home from a basketball game at Hoover, and I get home and it was like real quick. And my mom, probably not thinking anything of it, I just asked for some money and she said no. And just instantly, it was like that where you're trying to catch the words and like put them back in your mouth. Like, I said something smart and it was like, ooh, and I knew it. But of course I leave anyway, and in my head, I'm, God's already working with me. I didn't even really know at the time. I felt it in my heart. I was like, man, I feel really bad. But anyway, I go to Applebee's and I'm sitting there and my buddies and some friends were sitting around the table, and then all of a sudden I see my buddy Matt, his eyes just get like boom, saucers big, and I'm like, what is going on? What is happening? And he just goes, Coxie, Coxie, turn. And I turn and I see Pops walking to Applebee's with this look on his face, like it was like a movie scene, like there was like flames in the background.
Yeah.
He had like Rambo ammo on his chest, like a Conan sword in his hand or something. And in my head, I'm like, this is it. This is how I go.
It's a wrap.
This is how I go. I'm like making my peace like that, making sure I'm good with God. I mean, this is my last day on earth. He had this look on his face. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the look. And I was just like, ooh. Listen, pick me up pick me up on my collar, and it didn't wait till we got to the car in front of the whole restaurant. Just tuned me up. I've never heard my
I
dad
didn't say much.
But your silence was deafening.
But I really look at that as one of those defining moments where I knew where he stood, and I know in his house I'm never going to disrespect my mother, and I generally don't think I did it. I haven't ever since. She walks on water to a lot of us. We love her. She's the best thing ever. But at that moment, I had a little bit of, I got a little bit arrogant. I thought I was something bigger than I was, and he checked me. And at that moment, but now I understand that it was love. He didn't want me. Now looking back, now that I'm married. And now I think about those moments when my wife and I are going through, some of those arguing, just life. Life as happens in the back of my head. I'll never forget that moment because I know there are certain words that are never going to come out of my mouth towards her. I want to be able to say, when my kids someday are going to be able to say, I never saw my dad raise their voice to their mother, but that's from one of those little moments where we used to call it, and Dad had to check us. And he had to check me.
They were good then. Not a lot of discipline issues or anything like that. Once in a while. But it wasn't, so it's really hard then. So I try to do it like God would do it. When they did good, I really rewarded good. They had the Nikes and some of them got new cars. But the reality was that's based on how they handled themselves. Because I had situations where he was over other people's homes, and the boys, the kids went out toilet paper. He did.
Was it because of fear, or it was because of I know I ain't
No,
supposed to?
because I
knew it was.
I let him talk.
Yeah.
It's like I'll never forget it. I had a group of guys. We had a sleepover at my buddy's place, and we all, we were having a good time. I was having fun. Playing basketball, video games, all that kind. And then all of a sudden, one guy gets the idea. He's like, "Hey, what would be fun? Let's go to the grocery store. Let's go get some toilet paper. Let's go get some eggs, and let's just go, TP, such and such's house, down the street because they either had an argument or whatnot. They just wanted to go do it, and all of a sudden you start to see boys. Oh yeah, let's go. Yeah. And immediately I was like, you know what? It just didn't feel right to me. I was like, you know what, guys, I'm sorry. I was like, I can't believe I did this because I was a kid too. But I was like the only one. But I was like, I can't go, guys. And for some reason, I just feel like I can't go. And it was because, it may have been God in me. It may just be me thinking right, in the head and didn't think of what he would do. That's really what it was. I was like, what would my dad do? And I knew that he trusted me enough to go to my buddy's house, you know, and I didn't want to lose that trust.
Yeah.
And little do you know, they all came home. It was probably about 1 o'clock in the morning. They all came home, and then all of a sudden, the mom of my buddy's place that we were staying at got a phone call because she had overheard. Well, no, her husband had overheard one of the kids' names when they were running up and down the street throwing the toilet paper.
Oh, and
they got the one kid, and he went off and told
Like a
the
canary.
whole, started naming kids,
Isn't that how it is?
everybody, and I was like, look, you didn't tell them it was me. And they're like, Cliff, no, I didn't. 'Cause you
No honor
didn't go.
among thieves. They don't care.
His father
I'm going down.
called me.
Everybody going down.
His
Yeah.
father called me and told me. He said, I want you to know we had some trouble over here with police and stuff like that. But he said, I want you to know that Cliff ain't in it.
Yeah.
He was down to have
You know what I
popcorn,
mean?
watching Bruce Willis.
I was watching Bruce Willis chilling.
Thanks
So
for telling me.
now-
I'm not letting my kid over your house no more, but thanks for telling me.
So he begged me to let Cliff come over and spend time with his son.
Because he wasn't getting
Set an
out.
example.
Just be an example.
Yeah.
But that's what I got a lot, and I got that, you know, our doctor just retired. And he's the one that, you know, he couldn't sing the praises enough about these two.
Oh, see, and that's got me.
You know, and you know,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I got stories like that all over the place. You know.
What would you say to those guys who don't have the good example? You know, maybe don't have the Cliff or don't have the good grandpa. What would you say to them to maybe encourage them or help them, you know, flip that switch, turn the other way?
So if I could say something to somebody, it's, you know, follow Jesus as your all. Seriously.
The object is that you have to put things in the proper order. You know, it is God first, okay, and then my wife, okay,
That's right.
and then them, and then the job.
Never be afraid to ask for help. You
Yeah.
know, be purposeful about your time and what you're looking at. And this dude seems like he's got some good fruit showing, so I'm gonna ask him. You know,
Right.
so
I mean, I think about it. I mean, there's a lot of things you could say, but there's a plaque when you walk into my house. As for me and my house, I will serve the Lord. And that's, if I'm doing that, all is good.
Yeah.
Period.
And as men, worship is one of those things. And if you're gifted, like if you're a Christian, you can sing and do all this stuff. It's different. It's true. It's different.
Yeah.
Worship is different for you than it is for me because it doesn't sound like it does when you sing. I mean, in my head, I'm like Usher or something. I'm like Marvin Gaye, you know, in my head. But I never have once seen my father unfocused during a mind of worship. Like during worship, like it's his eye and however that comes out, hands raised, you know, whatever. I was just so lucky. And that's one of the things, just that conversations kind of came up in my spirit. I was so blessed and lucky to see him enter into worship and submit and genuine. And it meant something. And it was that time with him and God. You know, God comes first. But I was like, okay, so how do you tell somebody? How do you give a real life practical example of, you know, an application? And that would just be one thing I would say I got from him. And, you know, now it's like when you enter into worship, I'm not, you know, not worried about who's to your right and to your left. I mean, was a boxer, one of the toughest dudes. Masculine could probably still beat me up today, even though he never would. Maybe not. He might get tired now, but, but he could handle himself if he had to. But as masculine and as demonstrative as he carries himself, he's submitted during worship. And I've always respected that about him. And that's just one of the things I know I learned directly from him. And that's just, you know, like a real life application, something you can change right away.
Yeah.
You know, you can change that
good.
this Sunday or
Yeah.
Saturday night, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And another thing I did was I really wanted somebody else to lead them to the Lord. Because I knew they would do it if I asked them. And I didn't want to doubt that it was of their own volition.
Yeah.
Good. That's good.
But I would send people, see if he's ready.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's too many rules when it comes to love. It's just,
The phrase that keep getting thrown around, like modeling it, and then just being there. And then everybody just said like the big, like just be present, be where your kids are.
Right.
Like you can't model if you're not there. You know what I mean? Like they can't know how you're gonna react if you're not in front of them reacting to things. You know what I mean? They can't know how do you live your life, what does dad do, what does dad think, if you're not there to show it to him and give it to him.
Right.
And so, man, I think that's a huge takeaway for dads. Like, the overtime, it's not more important than the kid time, you know what I mean, than the family time. And if you're providing, financially, but you're not providing spiritually and with your presence, with everything else, well, you're still missing something. And so, like, that is like a huge takeaway, I think, is like, man, you want to be a good dad, be there for your kids. Be there for your family. Show them how to love their mom. Show them how to love each other. Show them how to deal with stuff. And so, man, I think that's huge. I think that's awesome.
That's great.
And come on, and that's as a dad, right? You're almost like, oh, that's it. Like not like that's it. There's a lot there, but it's like I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to buy them all the nicest and do all I just gotta be there for them. Yeah, just be there for them. That's great. I love kids.